I'm Keith Olbermann, and this is The Resistance. The President of the United States reportedly insists on being brought to Buckingham Palace alongside the Queen of England in a golden coach drawn by 6 royal white horses. Like goddamned Cinderella. Like a man unaware of the security nightmare he will create. Like a man unaware of the massive public protest that all the kings, or in this case, all the Queen's men and all the Queen's horses, might be able to keep nonviolent, might be able to contain, but cannot keep from happening. When the Times of London reported this latest evidence of the nexus of narcissism and madness meeting inside the addled brain of the demented man a minority of our voters have cursed us with, it caused barely a ripple here because it was only the 15th or 16th craziest thing Trump had done that week. Reminder, the newspaper reporting this, quoting security sources and making references to London's Metropolitan Police and the U.S. Secret Service, is owned by Trump's newest hanger-on, Rupert Murdoch. This is not a story designed to harsh Trump's buzz. This is reality, so real that even Murdoch gets it. The Times reported that, quote, "The White House has made it clear it regards the carriage procession down the Mall as an essential element of the itinerary for the visit currently planned for the second week of October." The story, co-written by the paper's crime and security editor, dripped with warnings. As recently as 2003, Vladimir Putin's state visit saw that foreign leader and the Queen ride the 7/10 of a mile with the carriage top down. But 6 years ago, President Obama had the presence of mind to thank the British for the option of the ceremony, but to ride in his own armored limousine. Even when the president of Mexico and the Chinese president visited separately in 2015, each had the common sense to ride in a closed carriage. It is not clear that Trump has even agreed to that. If he is in a golden coach being dragged up the Mall by a couple of horses, the risk factor is dramatically increased, the Times quoted its primary security source as saying. There may well be protections in that coach, such as bulletproof glass, but they are limited. In particular, it is very flimsy. It would not be able to put up much resistance in the face of a rocket-propelled grenade or high-powered ammunition. Armor-piercing rounds would make a very bad show of things. But we're not even talking about those serious scenarios. This is a president who would not go to throw out the ceremonial first pitch at the Washington Nationals opening day baseball game, obviously out of fear that he would be booed. This is a president who has yet to appear anywhere in public in which he might not loudly be cheered. This is a president who collapses into paranoid accusations of paid agitators when protesters demanding that he release his tax returns force him to alter his motorcade route from his fantasy land of a golf course he owns but can charge the taxpayers each time he uses it to his other fantasy land of a country club he owns but can charge the taxpayers each time he uses it. This is the world's ultimate snowflake, living inside the world's ultimate snow globe of his own creation, to prevent the slightest chance that his delusion that he is universally beloved will ever come into violent contact with the reality that he is hated, allegedly insisting that he ride to the palace in a golden coach, moving so slowly that he would have to hear and see at least some of those who despise him for as long as 10 minutes. 20 years ago, I had a stalker, and while I worked, ironically then, for Rupert Murdoch, the woman appeared to be getting crazier and crazier. Now, for everything else they do wrong, Fox does protect its employees from stuff like this. Murdoch himself gets about 1 serious death threat per day, his head of security, a former Scotland Yard chief, told me after he had flown from London to Los Angeles to coordinate a game plan to keep me safe. He had assessed my case on the plane, and he said that while he did not suspect that the woman was going to turn to violence, he wanted to enact several protective measures because her behavior reminded him of the story of a prominent actor who was being unknowingly stalked by a woman fan. This woman's delusion about the actor was different than most of them. She didn't need to actually inject herself into his life. She was content to simply mirror his life. If he spent the weekend in, say, Miami, she would weasel the information about where he was staying and what he was doing, something at which stalkers were far too adept, and she would go to Miami herself. She would stay at a hotel near his hotel. She would follow him at a discreet distance. Never once would she interact with him, but on Monday morning, she could go home and go to work and say of, let's call him Mike, Mike and I were in Miami. We went to South Beach. We even saw that funny game you bet on, Highlight. When all this was over, her coworkers were absolutely astonished. Everything she had told them about Mike was factually correct and rich in detail. They never realized it was only literally correct. Mike had indeed gone to Miami and South Beach and Hialeah, and this woman, his stalker, had gone to Miami and South Beach and Hialeah. And the parts she left out were she had stayed 100 yards away from him at all times, and he never knew she existed. The stalking ended, Murdoch's head of security told me, in Minneapolis or somewhere, when Mike left his hotel on foot and his stalker followed at a safe distance. And then suddenly, Mike realized he had left something at his hotel and he turned around to go get it. And the stalker was faced with disaster. Mike was now approaching her. She couldn't run away. That would be admitting to herself that Mike wasn't actually her boyfriend. She couldn't cross to the other side of the street. She couldn't stop to introduce herself. She certainly couldn't let him walk past her without as much as looking at her. The entire elaborate self-delusional fantasy was about to crash down upon her unless... Murdoch's man said that as soon as Mike got to within a few feet of her, this woman, who he had never met and who had never contacted him, but who had built a complicated and intricate and expensive relationship with him, saved herself from the confrontation with reality, the end of her world, in the only way left to her. She reared back and punched Mike in the face. She could now smile and explain to the police, to her coworkers, to herself, that she and Mike had had a fight, and they had broken up. In our little nightmare, of course, Donald Trump is Mike's stalker, and Mike is the reality in which Trump the stalker is failing and old and paunchy and fooling 1,000 fewer people right now than he fooled an hour ago, a reality in which the world mocks him and the politicians use him and his judgments are entirely wrong, and those closest to him try to calculate the exact date it becomes to their advantage to sell him out over Russia and impeach and jail him. And mostly Mike is the public that hates Trump the stalker, the public that Trump the stalker has decided to expose himself to, from a slow-moving golden carriage on the way to Buckingham Palace in October. What happens when reality approaches Trump and he cannot avert that confrontation? What kind of punch to the face does a thwarted stalker throw when he has nuclear weapons? Resist. Peace. By the way, if you enjoy these, I am proud to announce that coming in October, my book of these commentaries called Trump is Effing Crazy. It'll be available wherever books are, available.